Welcome back from the break. In our News in Focus segment today, we will have a conversation with the project director of the iRead, iLead campaign, Eric Kwesi Opong. Hello and welcome to another segment of Edu News in Focus here on Joy Learning TV. Over here, we tend to celebrate not only academic achievements, but also remarkable contributions to the educational sector. A few weeks ago, we got interactive with the executive director of an organization that is dedicated to improving literacy among kids in Ghana. Today, we are here again to interact with another person from this same organization and to talk about another project of their organization, which is the iRead, iLead literacy project. So without wasting much time, we'll get right into the conversation. My name is Comfort Antiteteria, and I will be your lovely host. Hello and welcome to the In Focus segment here on Joy Learning TV.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hope you are doing well.
I'm very well. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good
All
to
right.
know.
So let's get right to it.
Okay.
Kindly introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Eric Kwesi Opong. I'm the project director for Spring Up Global Network, and also doubles as the project director for the iRead, iLead educational project.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Kindly tell us about the iRead. I'm very interested about the iRead, iLead. I mean, what was the inspiration behind the, I mean, it rhymes. What was the inspiration behind the name?
Okay, so as an NGO, our purpose is to improve or contribute significantly to literacy in Ghana, and we believe strongly that to have effective leaders, you need to equip learners to be addictive readers. So the whole point of iRead, iLead is that we are encouraging our learners to read more so that they can develop themselves to be effective leaders. So through reading, you grow to become an informed leader. So it's the reading aspect and the leadership aspect. Exactly. So that is the main trick behind the iRead, iLead campaign. Exactly. Right. So through reading, we are building leaders for the future. Okay. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. So kindly tell us about the iRead, iLead literacy program.
Okay. Thank you so much. So the literacy program, it's the second phase of the whole iRead, iLead campaign. It's a two-in-one program. The first phase has to do with the library initiative, where we refurbish libraries in public basic schools across Ghana, which we've done so far. We have 10 libraries under our supervision, 2 on our own as an NGO, and 8 we did it with Deloitte. So for now, in all, we have 10 libraries across 5 regions, impacting over 23,000 learners in our public basic schools. Then it's important that we complement the library project to ensure that the purpose for which we establish those libraries will be achieved. So there is a need to complement it with the literacy program. So the iRead, iLead literacy program is the second phase of a complementary program that ensures that the children that we bless them with these libraries, the goal of getting them to have their literacy program, their literacy skills to be improved, will be achieved. So that's the main reason why we've come up with this program, to complement the library initiative that we've done in our public basic schools. Okay.
So what are some of the projects that this program entails?
With the literacy program? Yes. So the literacy program, we aim to expose our kids to all the 12 skills of literature. Okay. Right. And yes, for the 12 skills, we could talk about, let me refer to our framework and mention some to our viewers. Okay. We have creative writing as one of the 12 skills.
Which is exactly?
Creative writing involves imaginative writing. Not necessarily reading from a material, but being able to create something.
So like writing your own story.
Exactly. Stories, articles, journals. Exactly. So we want to introduce our children to such skill, creative writing. And you can also talk about reading comprehension. The word is quite straightforward.
Yes, it is.
Exactly. Then you have close reading. Close reading is also one of the skills that we want to introduce our children to. We also have analytical thinking. It's important that it's not only enough to just read, but how to analyze what you read so that you can think on your own. Exactly. So these are some of the skills we want to introduce our kids. You want me to go through all the 12,
please.
right? So
yes,
we have
please.
the literary analysis as well.
Okay.
We have the comparative literature. We have...
Please hold on. Which one is the literacy analysis? And
so the literary analysis.
Oh, literary.
Yeah, literary analysis. Mostly when a child reads a material. Okay. What we are doing, our books are not subject-based, but they are materials that will improve reading and writing skills of our kids, and mostly African authored, because we want the children to see themselves through the authors. So
I see the leadership aspects in here.
Exactly. So when a child reads a material, the child should be able to analyze the material, the story, what the story was talking about. So analyzing those material leads to that. So that's literary analysis. You get. Then we have comparative literature, we have poetry appreciation, we have research skills. Because it's like I said, going to the library alone, just reading materials isn't enough. We need to teach our kids to go in there to research about topics that their teachers would ask them to research on. So when you start building these skills at the foundational level of kids, they grow to have more strong force in that area of research. So we are introducing our basic school learners to research skills as well. Then also have vocabulary building. Yes, we want them to speak good English and also good vocabulary. And we also have reading for empathy. Then we have the literary criticism. Please,
which one is the reading for empathy?
Okay, that's a good... That has to do with a social emotional aspect of reading. Okay. Yes, how to connect with stories. You know, sometimes you could just... Someone can just pick a book and just read it without really connecting to the story. We need, because we want children to come up with not just reading materials, but to be able to even start writing their own stories.
Yes, you mentioned it.
Exactly. So if a child learns how to connect their emotions to stories, it's also a skill. Because if you ask a child to, let's say, write a story about a tragedy, okay, if a child doesn't have the skill of connecting emotionally to stories, that child wouldn't be able to creatively come up with such, you know, projects when you ask them to. So it's also important that while children are reading, we train them to have that social emotional aspect of things that they read. It's also a soft skill. So our goal is not just to get children to put words together, because reading goes beyond just putting words together. Like if you want to say write, it goes beyond just knowing that write is spelled R-I-G-H-T. You know, we want children to have the emotional aspect of stories that they read. So that's the meaning of the reading for empathy. Then you also have literary criticism. Exactly, yes. A child should be able to pick a book and criticize the material based on the outcome that it could be a debating material. A child should be able to say, I support this, or I support that, or I'm not in favor of this, I'm not in favor of that. We want them to be creative enough to whatever material that we expose them to. So that's the literary criticism aspect. Then the last but not the least is the public speaking and debate. Yes, we don't want our children to be timid. We want them to be outspoken. We want them to be all out, to be able to express themselves. So we'll be taking them through public speaking and as well as debate. So these are the 12 key literature skills that through our program we'll be exposing our children to. Beyond this one, we also have the STEM education. So we'll
before we get to that, I'm interested in knowing the criteria for selection of schools in the first place, and then selection of the, I'm assuming, mentees. That's the criteria that you base off to select those mentees. So for the literacy program, yes, we are going to work within our beneficiary schools. First of all, so we have 10 schools for now. We have 3 in Accra, we have 2 in Ashanti region, we have 1 in Central, we have 2 in Eastern region, then we have 2 in Volta region. So first of all, these are the schools that we are going to, you know, launch or run the literacy program, because they are beneficiary schools.
Initially, we were doing it even in orphanages, but going forward, our new framework, focuses on our beneficiary schools. Then we also have our librarians in our schools, our library facilities. So they will be more or less like the library facilitators. Okay. And we would give them extensive training. So we have the librarians and we also have the library facilitators, because we work in cluster of schools. So the facilitators are teachers that represent each unit within the cluster. So we train these facilitators and librarians on our literacy program guidelines. So this is some of the ways that we select. Then we establish a club-based literacy program in the school. So each school have a club, like the way in high school we have wildlife, the debaters club and those things. So we establish something like that in the school. So each of the 10 schools will have Spring Gap Global Network literacy program or club. We call it the Lit Child Club. So
what's the origin of the name?
So the lit signifies or means literature. So the lit child, lit child is just a coin of a word. So the Lit Child Club. So each school would have their unique or separate meeting days. So it could be OSU Cluster of Schools club could be meeting on Mondays. Kwashiman could be meeting on Wednesdays. So we would have the club in each of the school, and with the club is the librarian and the facilitators who would coordinate the club activities, and we would have extensive engagement. We've already started with the CISOs, because the CISOs are the circuit supervisors. They all the heads within the cluster are under their supervision. So the CISOs also play a key role to ensure that each of the club we establish in the school is run effectively, because they are more or less like people that are facilitating or coordinating the club on our behalf. So we work with the CISOs as well. Then through the librarians and the facilitators, remember I mentioned that the facilitators are teachers from each of the schools within the cluster. They will help us identify students that need special attention. I
was getting to that.
Exactly. So I'm taking us through how we get the children to even be part of the club. The library is open to everyone in the school to go in there during school session or school hours to read. If a child is reading in the library and needs an assistance with maybe 1 or 2, the librarians could attend to the person. But we want to identify special children who may be having challenges with reading or comprehension, anything reading. So the facilitators, the teachers would help us identify such children. Then we would start the club with such children. But it will be open to also children who will be interested to join. So we take data of these children, then we start giving them that needed attention. Then we are almost done. We had a framework, but we are reviewing the framework and the guideline for the literacy program. So once the facilitators and the librarians are being trained on those guidelines will be implemented at the club level. And those guidelines are focused on helping the children to, read and write, and also probably go through all the 12 skills that I have mentioned. So that's how the whole framework is about. Yes.
Okay, so now we can move on to the STEM and then the robotics.
Yeah, the STEM and the robotics. Yes. So I need to mention that as an NGO, we don't work in isolation. It's important that you identify relevant stakeholders to achieve your goal. With anything literacy, you can't do it alone. So we are working with Ghana Commission for UNESCO to help us coordinate or run the literature aspect. It's a 2-in-1 literacy program as well. The literature aspect and also the STEM aspect. So with the STEM, with the literature aspect, we have Ghana Commission for UNESCO and also the HARD group helping us to run the literacy program in our schools. Then when it comes to the robotics or the STEM education, the one we just mentioned, it will be facilitated by Coderina EduTech. They are also a STEM focused organization. So we've partnered them to also support us with the STEM education. So with that, emphasis will be placed more on coding and robotics. So we've already had we've had materials, coding materials or robotic materials from them, and we've even distributed it to some of our schools. In fact, with the last competition that Coderina organized, some of our schools were part of it. We had Adjuso cluster of schools and also Konongo and also State Experimental partaking in that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
is it like the NSMQ for basic schools, or it's literature, it's everything?
No, that one is focused on STEM education.
Okay.
So we have competition in coding and robotics. Exactly. So that is the STEM education aspect of our literacy program. So we have Coderina supporting to facilitate the STEM education in our schools. So at the club level, that is what will be taught, the literature aspects and also the STEM education aspect. There are times that they will meet for STEM training, and there are also times that they will meet for the literature training. Because beyond that, there are a lot of competitions that our schools will be partaking in. Exactly. So if you ask of the STEM education, we have the coding aspect and the robotic aspect. With time, we introduce more exciting STEM program. But for now, for the pilot phase, we are starting with the coding and also the robotic aspect. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So what has been the impact of this, especially the STEM and then the robotics? What has been the impact so far? Have you gotten like participation, a lot of participation from the kids?
Yes. Yes. In fact, we've not yet fully operationalized the literacy program. You know, we had one that we were doing in our schools, our two schools, the two schools that we did, we established the libraries for, the one at Agbekucheko and the one at Yevi. But with Deloitte partnership and having more schools on board, we've decided to revive or review the program that we started, I think, 2021. So with the new one, we are yet to actually operationalize it.
Okay.
Yes, but the libraries are open for the kids to have access to, and we do occasional visitation. I think even last week we had our executive director Kofa visit two of our schools, Osu cluster of schools and also Kwashiman, and you could see how excited the children are when they go to the library. And you could see some of them, because we don't allow the kids to take the book outside the library space, they end up even writing the stories.
Yeah, she mentioned it.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do the visitation and we take feedback for the librarians, and we also check the number of people that normally visit the library, because there is some
an attendance,
and it's very, very encouraging. You have all the Kwashima, for instance, a cluster of schools. We have about 9 schools within the cluster, and it will amaze you that per the logbook data that we checked, all the schools within the cluster have been coming to the library, and you could see even the teacher that brought them and all that. Yeah, so the impact has been very good. We get the feedback from our librarians and how the children are making use of the library. So beyond that, we would also want to establish the club, so that the children that the teachers will help us identify, we give them special training, so that a year, 2 years, 3 years from today, we can see the impact that literacy program have had on those children.
So the club you just mentioned, is it the robotics and STEM club or the literature club?
Yeah, so the yes, that's a good question, thank you. So the Lit Child Club would handle both the literature and the STEM. Okay. So it's, as I mentioned, it's like in high school we have wildlife club. So there are so many things or programs that the club handles. So for us, we would handle the literature aspects and also the STEM aspect. Exactly. In
the Lit Child Club.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Okay. So the Lit Child Club is the literacy club. So when you attend a club meeting, what are you being taught? Exactly. So that's what I'm talking about. Okay. The literature and also the STEM education. And the STEM education is not theoretical. It's more practical, because they have toolkits that they practice with. We have computers that the children, you know, work with computers. We have coding material that we send to our schools. So they are not just going there to be taught on a board, but they demonstrate the STEM, because there are competitions at the end of the day. So they have to demonstrate what they are being taught. So there are 2 kits that will be given to the children during club session times. If it's 1 hour or 2 hours per session, they would, if it's time for the robotic, they will practice with the material that at their disposal. Same with the coding aspect, and also same with the literature aspect. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a timeline to when all of this would like officially commence?
Okay. So the schools that we did, I think the Accra schools, the Kumasi schools, some of them have started.
Okay.
But we've not fully, so I use the word fully, but some of them have started. We want to make it a general, operationalize it generally, so all our 10 schools will benefit. We targeted 3 out of our 10 as a pilot phase. You get it? We targeted 3. So with the 3 that started, we've actually observed something that needs to be improved on. So before this year ends, we would operationalize the literacy program or the literature program across all our 10 schools.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please, so what's the provision for students with physical disabilities in your projects?
Okay, so that's a good question. Thank you for that. As I mentioned earlier, I stated that through the facilitators, the teachers in the respective schools within a cluster, they will help us identify such children. They are all part of the special needs that I talked about, not just about intellectual needs, but even those special children. Exactly. So we'll give them special attention, because we cannot exclude them from the initiative. So every child within the school will be part of the initiative. Okay. So we would identify all of these children and attend to them. Yes.
All right. So are there any final words, since we've come to the conclusion of our interaction, are there any final words you would like to say to our viewers, say to your partners?
Yes. I would want to thank Ghana Education Service for their support ever since this whole initiative started. Right from the head office and also the Director General in particular, Dr. Eric Nkansa. He's been very, very supportive. Through his support, we've been able to connect with all the regional and municipal and district directors of education. I would also want to thank UNESCO Ghana Commission for coming on board to support with this literacy program, and as well as Coderina and also the HAD group. So these are partners that without them, I don't think this whole program will be a success. So we thank them for their inputs and their support. And I wouldn't, thank people without thanking my volunteers at Springer Global Network, especially the project team. They've been very supportive, day in and day out, planning, working out this literacy program. They've been very, very supportive, and I also want to thank them. And I think I also want to thank your team for giving us the opportunity to share what we are doing to support a literacy program or literacy interventions in Ghana. Yes.
All right. Oh, thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much for making time of your busy schedules to be here and for interacting with us. I'm sure our learners out there have been inspired. Well, this is where we will draw the curtains on today's segments of EduNews in Focus here on Joy Learning TV. I hope you have learned a lot. We have heard a lot, and I hope that you wouldn't hesitate to take advantage of these initiatives whenever they are made available to you in the course of time. My name is Comfort Antiteteria. Keep watching Joy Learning TV for all your favorite educational programs. Until next week, bye. That'll be all for today on EduNews 360 here on Joy Learning TV. Stick and stay for the premiere episode of the Season 2 of Career Trail on Joy Learning TV at 4 p.m. today. My name is Comfort Antiteteria. Many thanks for watching.